Hey guys, so Peyton and I decided to do our project on the effects of e-cigarettes on lung function. So just to give a little bit of background on e-cigarettes in general, they have become much more popular in the past decade, with there being a significant boom in the last 5 years. Not many studies have been done on the effects of vaping, and with the boom that came along with it the past 5 years, more studies are being done. E-cigarette liquid is made with combinations of vegetable glycerin and propylene glycol, with the choice to add nicotine if desired. Due to ever-increasing energy input, sub-ohm atomizer resistances, and custom mixtures for electronic cigarette liquids, the effect of user exposure is becoming more uncertain and potentially a new health hazard, which is why there has been such an increase in studies done over the past few years, because we are trying to see what the true effect of all of these products are on our lungs.
The article that we chose examined the inflammatory effects of e-cigarette vapor condensate on human alveolar macrophages. So that's basically the effect of e-cigarette liquid that has been vaped, how the act of vaping actually affects the function of the alveolar macrophages. So the objective of this study was to determine how much vaping increases the cytotoxic effects of e-cigarette liquid. And so the study compared the effect of unvaped e-cigarette liquid to e-cigarette vapor condensate, or in other words, the e-cigarette liquid that has been vaped, on alveolar macrophage function. And so how this study was done was the alveolar macrophages were treated with the ECVC, and they were also treated with a nicotine-free version of ECVC. And then they assessed the alveolar macrophages' viability, their rates of apoptosis and necrosis, as well as their cytokine, chemokine, and protease releases. And they also assessed their rates of reactive oxygen species release, as well as their rates of bacterial phagocytosis.
Based on all of the experiments that were done, they were able to reach these following results. Macrophage culture with e-cigarette liquid or e-cigarette vapor condensate caused a significant reduction in cell viability. E-cigarette vapor condensate was cytotoxic at lower concentrations than the liquid itself, and it had a more significant apoptosis and necrosis effect on cells. Exposure of alveolar macrophages to a non-lethal level of 0.5% e-cigarette vapor condensate increased reactive oxygen species production approximately 50 times and inhibited phagocytosis significantly. Pan and class 1 isoform PI3K inhibitors partially inhibited the effects of the e-cigarette vapor condensate on macrophage viability and apoptosis, and secretion of interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor A, CXCL8, monocyte chemoattractant protein, and matrix metalloproteinase 9 was significantly increased following this challenge. So following all of the experiments and the results that they got, they did a few smaller tests to see if there was any way to restore function in the alveolar macrophages, as well as if there was any way to slow down any cytotoxic effects, necrosis, apoptosis, etc. They did a treatment with the antioxidant N-acetylcysteine, and it kind of healed the cytotoxic effects of the vapor condensate to levels that only differed slightly from the baseline at the beginning of the experiment, and it also restored some phagocytic function. In conclusion, the e-cigarette vapor condensate is significantly more toxic to alveolar macrophages than non-vaped e-cigarette liquid. Too much production of reactive oxygen species, inflammatory cytokines, and chemokines caused by vapor from e-cigarettes may induce an inflammatory state in alveolar macrophages within the lung. And that will also be partially dependent on nicotine levels, whether or not you do or do not vape nicotine, and the milligram nicotine content that would be in the e-cigarette liquid. Inhibition of phagocytosis also suggests users may suffer from less bacterial clearance. And while further research is still needed to fully understand the effects of e-cigarette exposure in humans, all studies, especially this one in particular, have begun pointing towards the fact that e-cigarettes are not safe, contrary to the widely held belief that they are much safer than smoking. While they are a good alternative, there is still going to be some lung damage and some tissue damage just due to the fact that you are smoking something and inhaling products and chemicals that your body does not naturally produce or need.